Meeting to order as soon as Jenny gets back to her desk and we can get ready. We are the Putnam County Planning Commission, and I will find my introductory little spiel right here in a minute. This is a public hearing. We are the Putnam County Planning Commission. We are designated local planning agency for the county as described under Title 11, Chapter 163 of the Florida statutes, and we function under the authority of Articles 11 and 12 of the Putnam County Land Development Code. The primary responsibility of the Commission is to serve as an advisory body to hear and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on matters related to provisions of and proposed amendments to the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan and the Putnam County Land Development Code. The members of this committee will review each application and make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners at a regularly scheduled meeting on July 27, 2021. Procedurally, we will call each case by name and number. A member of staff will then briefly explain to us the nature of each request. We will take comments from the applicant or their representative, followed by any public comments concerning the request. Please direct all comments or statements to the Commission and not to other people in the audience. Before speaking, we will ask each person to be recognized, come forward to the lectern, and identify his or herself by name and address. After all persons wishing to speak have been heard, we will entertain a motion from the Commission. This motion will be voted on by the Commission members and become our recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And the Board of County Commissioners will make the final determination regarding the applications at their meeting on July 27, 2021. A few points of order as we begin the meeting. We do have a code of personal ethics that we ascribe to, and I will read that at this time. As a member of the Putnam County Planning Commission, I pledge to come to meetings prepared for the items on the agenda, willing and ready to listen carefully and courteously to make informed decisions based on the facts presented and what I feel is in the best interest of the people and businesses of Putnam County. I will refrain from unnecessary interruptions, and I will be appreciative of and respectful toward applicants, members of staff, and other members of this commission. I will support the decisions made by the majority, and I will be fair and objective in all that I do as a member of the Putnam County Planning Commission. At this time, I need to remind everyone of our responsibilities under state law and ask if anyone has had any ex parte communication with any of the applicants for these cases. Yes, sir.
I've had some discussions with Ron Delisle, primarily over a year ago on not this piece of property, but the one across the street, which he's already in the process of working on.
Okay. You need to move closer to the microphone, Jerry. Jerry's disclosed that he had a conversation with Mr. Delisle about a year ago about a piece of property across the street. So I appreciate your bringing that up. Mr. Hafner, anyone else?
And he's the contractor for it, so I've had conversation with him about that.
Do either of you feel that your conversations will affect how you will vote today?
No.
Okay, anyone else?
I too have had conversations with him, but nothing that affects my vote today.
Okay. I do have a recusal form from Mr. Schwing on both cases that are coming before us. Because he owns property within the cone of interest, that 300 yards from property lines on both cases, the PUD and the rezoning. So wanted to bring that up. And if anyone has a conflict of interest with any of these cases, you need to declare it at this point. Okay. We're going to change the order of business a little bit today because we've got some staff that need to be out of here by 5 o'clock. We're going to take ordinance 2021-2016, or 0616. First, Wendy, are you presenting that ordinance?
No, ma'am.
Who is presenting that ordinance for us, please?
I am. I'm Don Peckham. I'm the floodplain manager for Putnam
Okay,
County.
you want to come up to the podium so we can hear you better?
I'm Don Peckham. I'm the floodplain manager for Putnam County.
Okay,
What I'm presenting is some ordinance changes that were
thank you.
presented to us by DEM in order to remain.
DEM.
Yeah, Department of Emergency Management.
Okay.
The State Department of
Okay.
Emergency Management, the Floodplain Management Office. They're requiring some changes in order that we can retain our rating with the CRS program, which is Community Ratings Program. We are a Class 8. If we don't do the ordinance changes, then they say we can expect to be retrograded, which means they would take away our rating, and that would remove any discounts that the county gets for flood insurance. So
And that would impact homeowners as well?
absolutely, because they pay the flood insurance, so
Okay,
their premiums would go up. But currently, they enjoy I believe, a 10% discount because we are a CRS 8 community.
okay. Would you give us an overview of this ordinance and what's being changed?
So there are two major, not really major changes, but there's two things that they are changing. One is the elevation requirement for mobile homes to be more consistent with the Florida Building Code. And also, they are limiting the size of accessory structures that can be built below the required flood elevation. They're limiting that size to 600 square feet. Then there's a few minor changes to the definitions of certain things, just as a housekeeping.
Now, is this affecting all mobile homes in the county or just new mobile homes?
So this would affect all new mobile homes that are installed once the ordinance is adopted.
Okay,
So, and
So
that would
no
be
retroactive requirements?
Newer replacement homes.
okay. Okay. Anything else that is in this ordinance that's making a change?
Like I said, there were some changes in a few definitions, like the market value and so forth. The market value is a very narrow definition. It's a market value of a structure, excluding the value of the land and other improvements. So for the purposes of substantial improvement or substantial damage, there's a need to know what the value of the structure is without all of the accessory, without the value of the land. It's for determining whether a structure can be elevated or if it needs to be elevated. So,
Okay. What is the date on the original ordinance that we're replacing? Do you know?
no, I don't have that offhand. I don't have it with me.
Okay. But this is part of the Land Development Code, and we're doing this now instead of waiting to do it with the Land Development Code because it's needed expeditiously. Is that the way I understand it?
Correct, correct. We are in our cycle year, which means that we're being audited basically this year by FEMA, so there's quite a bit of urgency to it.
And we want to get it done before we have the onslaught of our seasonal cyclonic activity.
Right, and plus.
I like to use that H word.
Also, it's a good time to amend the ordinance now while we're amending the Land Development Code and getting it updated on Muni Code as well.
Okay. Right, because it's gone to Muni Code.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything to add, sir? I see you have enforcements there.
Yes, ma'am. So this
And
is,
you are?
I'm the building official for Putnam County, John Ciaffi.
I knew that. I just wanted you to get it on record.
Yes, ma'am. So this was a gift given to us by DEM with the state. This wasn't something that we started. This is pretty much get on board with the ordinance or you're going to lose your rating kind of a thing. So they've given us verbiage to change. We've done it. We've sent it back and forth. It's been going on for months. We finally got an approved ordinance, and we need to go in front of you and in front of the commission 2 more times in order to
Right,
enact this ordinance.
right.
So
You have to have 2 readings.
that's the position of the county.
Okay, all righty. Do we have any questions of either Mr. Peckham or Mr. Ciaflo from a standpoint of board? Go ahead, Aaron, you're on.
I am on. I have one, just for general purposes. Where it says replaced or substantially improved, what is the definition of substantially? Is
Where
that
are
like
you, Bob?
50%? It says it several times in here, so.
Yeah, and they define that in the land development code, but it's 50% of the
That-
value of the structure. That's why they are
Market value.
updating the requirement for the definition for market value, because it can be done a few different ways, and they want to make sure that they're excluding the other structures and so forth in order to get a true value of what the structure is worth, because that can determine whether a structure needs to be elevated or if it can be elevated, those type
Right.
of things.
So if
Okay.
50% of the market value is exceeded, then it would be required to be elevated?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
I have a question. How much is flood insurance? I mean, if you look at how much does it cost for flood insurance to cover a structure? It's only got a $250,000 maximum on it. Do you know what that fee is?
No, because it's not a set fee, okay? It depends on the height of the structure. So if a structure is, let's say it's an old structure that was constructed below the required elevation, their insurance would be higher because there's a higher risk. The higher the structure, the lower the premiums would be.
Yeah, I know in my personal house, I had flood insurance. When I first moved there, I didn't have to have it. And then they changed the elevation by 1/10. And so I did have to have it. And then I went and got a Loma and got it reduced. And it's not much. My heart is like, if you're getting $50 off on your flood insurance, we'll say $50 a year off your flood insurance. If you go make improvements to your house, and I've encountered this in multiple places, not only in Putnam County, but I've encountered it in Jacksonville. Seems like Putnam County is a little more stringent on it than what I've experienced otherwise. But you would be, and it might be because the values of the structures are less, but when you start doing a rehab on a house, and from what I understand, this is compounded. So if you do $50,000 worth of work today, 5 years from now, you do another $50,000. So at some point, you're going to trigger that 50%. And it puts a real heartburn on the residents whenever they're trying to make improvements to their property, but they can't improve it because it's either it's so cost prohibitive to try to raise the structure. And I've just ran into it. My opinion is it's not worth the 10%.
It may or may not be. The thing to remember, though, is when you make an improvement on a structure and then you go to improve it 5 years later, hopefully the improvements that you did had some effect on the value. And we don't add the two together. So you spend 40% now and you come back in 5 years, we don't go back 5 years.
Well, I'm glad to hear that
Yeah, we
because
don't
I
have
was
a 5-year
was
window.
told by some other one of them in Jacksonville, floodplains director. He says, no, he says it's like if you do, let's say your house is worth $100,000 and you do $45,000 now. When you go back to put a roof on in 3 years or 5 years, well, that's going to trigger you. So now I've got to either raise my house up or I can't put a roof on the damn house.
Yes, in order for them to do that legally, that has to be in their ordinance. And we don't have it in our ordinance, so we don't do that to
Well,
folks.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay.
That is good to know.
I mean,
Because
it's
we
really
do want to
good to
be
know.
we want to be friendly in Putnam County if we can.
Yeah, the reverse edge of that sort is that folks will come in and do a small renovation to just be under 50%, and then they'll come back in a few months and apply for another permit to do another one. It's legal, it's not ethical, but
It's not advised,
we
but
don't have the protection in our ordinance to protect from that, so you
we'll
wind
get
up
to
with-
that now. We're going to be doing land development code soon, so
Yeah.
Well,
Bear
from
with
what
us.
we're hearing, that's not where we want to go. We don't have a 5-year window for added value of the renovations.
Yeah, they call
Which is
that
good and bad.
cumulative. It's
Yes.
called cumulative damages.
Right.
And it has to be in your ordinance in order to enforce it.
Right.
So on this particular ordinance, Anything else that you need us to know about before we bring it back to the board for discussion?
No, not really. There's, like I said, it's definitions, and they're crossed out, they're struck out, and
Right,
and the new-
right. right.
There's really not that much difference. They offer a couple of different options, but,
So basically, this has been written by DEM,
yes.
okay? And they will be the approving authority with the state. Is there anything that DEM told us not to do?
One thing I will say that they told us to do is when we make the changes, we have to comply with all the codes. So
Right,
can't make a change that's going to conflict with another.
so basically,
Environmental
this is
code.
going to be in compliance with the Florida Building Code
Yes,
across the board, not just for the residential code for mobile homes.
It's all structures.
yeah.
All structures, okay. All
correct.
structures will fall under the Florida Building Code.
So if you had your accessory structure, what was the limit of the accessory structure before this amendment?
So there was not a limit, and that's
Okay.
what they're trying to avoid because they're finding that accessory structures.
Microphone.
Accessory structures are getting very large, and FEMA wants them to be a minimum investment, so if somebody's doing an accessory building that's 50 by 100, it's not really a minimum investment anymore, so they want those buildings elevated so they don't become damaged.
But when you have flood insurance, your accessory structures aren't covered like your primary structure. They're only a very limited, I mean, it's peanuts compared to what your primary structure is, so.
Right, and that's part of the reason for it, because, like I said, the accessory structures are getting big, and the insurance was really designed for minor structures to be allowed to be below. It's very limited structures, it's for parking, access, and storage. Those type of structures can be below, but the new part of this is what we're adding is the 600 square foot limitation. If they're larger than 600 square foot, they have to be elevated.
And that would also need to be inserted into the land development code for residential mobile home too, probably.
It wouldn't have to do with mobile homes, it's just for accessory structures, what we're talking about
Okay.
now.
But it would be part of that zoning area because they would be in that zoning. So accessory structures would fall within the
It would be in that zoning district, for, say, it's in the
Right, okay.
residential districts.
it's going to be a crosswalk kind of thing. Okay?
Right, but it's a different type of structure.
Where'd the 600 square feet come from?
That was from FEMA guidance. They had sent out guidance for adopting this ordinance, and it's contained in there.
Yeah. I always get tickled when I see those kinds of things, having been at the Water Management District for almost 30 years. I see bureaucrats setting those kind of limits and so forth and so on, and most of them are just
They're arbitrary.
right there. But that's okay.
But this is large enough, this is, of course, would be large enough for a garage.
It's larger, it's large
Storage.
enough for the average two-car garage. If they
Right.
start getting a two-car garage with a shop, then it gets bigger.
Right,
And the only difference now is it will have to be elevated so that instead of flood vented, they do allow flood venting for the
right,
smaller structures.
depending on where it falls within the floodplain.
Right.
Okay,
It had to be in a flood hazard area.
Right.
If it's in a non-flood hazard area, then there is no limitation.
okay, all righty.
What all falls under the accessory structures?
So for FEMA purposes, parking, access, and storage.
Parking, access, and storage.
So your sheds, your garages,
What about
access would be
HVAC?
porches.
Right.
Porches.
HVAC units?
HVAC units, no, they have to be elevated according to the building code.
Okay,
And that's new equipment, okay? Used equipment can be replaced at the same level, but new equipment has to be elevated.
okay. All right.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Does this affect the county any other way other than the discount that the people get, the 10% discount?
So we get, we're graded by ISO, the county affects the rating on ISO.
What does that mean?
So building departments are rated by ISO. And if we're not in CRS or not in compliance with NFIP, then it would affect those ratings. And that could affect prices for insurance on homes that aren't even in flood hazard. So we're trying to do what's best for the citizens.
So you're saying this ordinance affects fire insurance?
This ordinance only affects the floodplain ordinance.
And ISO is what?
ISO is Insurance Services Offices, so they are the state organization that rates building departments. In other words, they're our enforcement agency. ISO, DEM, they're all part of the same.
That's
Right.
not the thing that we get for the fire stations, the rating?
So there's two different ISO programs.
All
One
right.
handles fire services, one handles building services.
Okay.
And they both affect your insurance rates inside the county. And along with the CRS, that keeps our ISO rating down. If we're a member of the program, we're in good standing, that keeps our numbers good. Right now, we're at a 3, which is excellent. So we try not to affect that and affect all the homeowners' insurance rates.
What is your timeline on getting this passed? Yesterday?
They told us no timeline, just ASAP is what they said. So
That means yesterday in state government.
Pretty much.
Okay, all right. Any other questions we have before we bring this back for a vote? Ken, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Tom?
Nope.
Jerry? Aaron?
I just want to make sure, clarify, this is only pertaining to manufactured homes and accessory structures.
Yes,
There's no-
nothing has changed.
Nothing has
for-
changed for single-family residential?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Single-family residence, the flood provisions are part of the Florida Building
They're
Code.
already there, right.
So,
Okay. Joey?
Nope. They're all been answered.
Joel?
No more questions.
Joe?
No.
All right. Do I hear a motion for approval or recommendation for approval or recommendation for denial of this ordinance? Okay, we have people who want to speak. We will do that. I am so sorry. Have you filled out a blue card? If you filled out one of the speaker cards, I guess they're green today. That's okay. We'll let the first person come up and so we don't waste time here. Anyone who wants to speak, please fill out a speaker's card. Thank you, staff. Thank you very much, both of you.
thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay. I apologize for not doing public comment. And again, this ordinance, regardless of what we do with it, will go before the Board of County Commissioners on July 27th. Was it July? It was July 27th, for their discussion, and they will hold a public hearing similar to this. They will actually hold 2 public hearings because it has to be voted on twice as an ordinance, so it will go before them and then their first meeting in August. Come on up. Just hand me your card and come on up. I'll try. Just tell us your name and I'll try to make it. You're Robert Lake.
That's correct.
Okay, please speak into the mic and
My name is Robert Lake. I live in Pomona Park. I am a state licensed dealer for manufactured and modular housing.
Okay.
I'm a state licensed installer. I sit on the board of directors of the Florida Manufactured
Excuse me.
Housing Association.
excuse me just a moment. You want to come back to the table if you're not recusing yourself on this case? Let's come back to the table. You are a licensed dealer.
I'm a licensed dealer. I am a licensed installer. I sit on the board of directors of the Florida Manufactured Housing Association. I'm the president and chief executive officer of Lakes Housing Center in East Palatka, and I've been part of the business community here in Putnam County for 46 years.
Okay.
I've been involved in numerous discussions about flood issues over the years, including what resulted in the current standards that we have today. My concern is a bit of overkill on what's proposed for the elevation on manufactured housing. It is literally a double standard. It's not equal or in line with the Florida Building Code or standard housing. And what I mean by that is that we have a base flood elevation, and the requirement is for the bottom of the lowest floor to be 1 foot above that point. We essentially have that in place right now because the bottom of the I-beam or the chassis, transportation device, and the blocking device for both frame-on modulars and manufactured housing is to be elevated to the base flood elevation, and the beams are 12 inches. That gives us our 1 foot of essentially what they call freeboard, the protection for the insulation and bottom flooring.
But it's not the lowest point on that
But it's the lowest point.
flooring, right?
It gives us, freeboard is a cushion, protection space from the base flood elevation to the bottom of the floor. On a manufactured house or on a modular that has a frame-on application, the frames are generally average 12 inches before the bottom of the floor. They are impervious to water. They're not disappearing. They're not coming apart. That is your freeboard. The proposed ordinance is requesting another foot above that, way beyond any standard for any other type of housing. And that extra foot results in a number of negative things. It is extremely costly to raise a home another foot. It is negative in the sense that in some cases it takes you from a 4 or 5 step into your house to a veritable ladder to get in and out of your house. The talk about insurance savings for the general public. We want to save them on their flood insurance. The sheer number of people, the percentage of people that actually get flood insurance on their homes is really minor. It's startling how few people actually pay for flood insurance, even though they probably should have it. There is the idea that on a higher set, your insurance rate would drop. But we don't need to impose a higher set as the standard to be in compliance with what the state is requesting that we do. It can certainly be offered to individuals locating properties in flood zone A, so they can, on an individual basis, I would like my home higher, I want to lower my insurance as low as possibly can be. But to mandate it for everybody is excess, and it's beyond what is really required to protect our people here. The policy in place has been here for 7 or 8 years since we went through this once before, and it works quite well. I've got countless examples I could show you at some time of homes that were in disastrous flood areas where the home was just fine. The floor was protected, the insulation was protected, everything else was just fine. There wasn't damage sustained of any significant amounts if they are set to the proper code and in compliance with what the state requires. The 1 foot of freeboard to the bottom of the frame is an excessive request, an expensive request, and one that I am totally against. I have spoken to several, I haven't had a lot of time to prepare for this. I've spoken to several dealers who do business here. I've spoken to numerous installers who do business here, and we are all on the same page that it is overkill and it is a double standard to require manufactured homes to be a foot higher than everything else.
Let me ask you this.
Yes, ma'am.
If the state is doing this across the state, and they're going to every county, all 67 of us, and saying, we need you to amend your ordinances, this is how we want it to be, what reaction can your industry do to comply?
The state is not requiring 1 foot to the bottom of the I-beam. They're requiring 1 foot to the bottom of the floor. It is an option for each individual county and municipality to establish that freeboard. It's not, the state is not requiring 1 foot of freeboard below the bottom of the frame to be in compliance. They are recommending it for lower insurance rates. But that recommendation should not be applied unilaterally to everybody. It should be offered up to individuals who think higher is better, that's fine. If they want to put it on stilts, that's fine, let them do it. But to mandate that to be in compliance with the state requirements is just not necessary. It's overkill and it's expensive.
One more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that 1 foot I-beam and that clearance exist with both new and reused mobile homes, or is there a different base and foundational structure on older mobile homes?
Over the years, as the homes have gotten much more substantial, the sizes have increased, and along with that has been an increase in the size of the I-beam. It's gone
Right.
from what 40 years ago was an 8-inch I-beam, suddenly 12-inch I-beam is the standard anymore, which gives you that cushion, that freeboard, if you will.
What percentage of mobile homes is your installation of new mobile homes, brand-new manufactured homes, and reused mobile homes? How does that break down in your business?
Would you state that again, please?
What percentage of your installations are of brand-new homes versus reused homes?
I'm probably in the 90% plus range on new versus pre-owned. Pre-owned inventory, there was a time in our industry when the houses were so inexpensive, and obviously you'd buy one and a couple years later you'd trade it in and get a new one. There was no cost effect to it. But over the years, as our standards has improved substantially, and we do have the loftiest standards for construction and installation in the entire country. We literally have the best standards anywhere. In the last 20 years, since the last codes were put into place, we've had 10 hurricanes have hit the state of Florida. We have had absolutely 0 losses to the wind. We have not had one documented case of foundation failure anywhere, no shifting, no collapse, no flotation. The only homes lost in the last 20 years in all 10 storms have been tornadoes, tree damage, and excessive flooding. That's all we've lost. Our standards have been on par with site-built housing for the last 20 years.
But wouldn't the excessive flooding be something that this would address?
Excessive flooding, the extra foot is punishment, is prejudicial for manufacturer because it's not required for any other type of housing. Why shouldn't they be another foot higher? You know, why not it be, it's supposed to be a unilateral standard for housing. Doesn't matter what kind it is, that floor, the protection of the subfloor, that should be a unilateral standard. It shouldn't be, well, you're living in a manufactured home, you need to be a foot higher. It's just not necessary, it serves no purpose.
Okay.
I believe that it should be unilateral for housing, period, to establish a barometer, and that excessive footer freeboard is actually excessive.
Is,
I may call you back. Go ahead.
is that 12-inch runner board?
The I-beam?
The I-beam, that's pressure treated? Is that all
Well,
that pressure treated or not?
it's a steel chassis. It's the actual frame, which is the transportation device. But on manufactured home, it's actually used for the blocking, it becomes part of the foundation.
Oh, it's steel, yeah, it's steel. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, and above that is where you get the floor joists, the insulation, the stuff that needs to be protected. But with the simple 12-inch I-beam, you are at what the state requires, which is a foot above the base flood elevation. And we haven't had, to my knowledge, any issues over the last 10 years or since we've been doing this, since the last go-around we had. We did this once before where we wanted a foot of freeboard, and it is, in my opinion, quite excessive and expensive to boot.
Above that steel I-beam, what is?
That's where you get into
what's the?
You've
how
got
many
about 8
inches
inches
are
of
to the-
flooring, from a 2x6 to a 2x8, depending on the
2x6,
size of the
2x8.
unit. Some are 2x10s, and then the floor surface itself with 5/8 or 3/4 inch. So you've got 8 to 12 inches of flooring in there above that I-beam, which is the subfloor.
Floor.
Above that I-beam, are those pressure treated or are they? I'm
No,
just
they are not.
curious.
There is a cover plate, there's for lack of a word, they call it
Composite or?
language is a belly board. It's a protective board which holds the insulation inside of the floor joist. It's a protective layer of sheeting
Right.
that protects it. But the point is that the bottom of those floor joists is the lowest point of the floor. That I-beam is not the floor.
Right.
And to put that I-beam 12 inches up is just excessive.
Okay. Let's hold you so you can come back up, so please don't go anywhere, but we have one other speaker. Come on up. Just come on, you got to talk into the microphone. I can't let you, just hand me your card first, though. We got to get this thing in order here. Thank you, sir. And you're Brian?
Brian Corcoran.
Okay, Brian Corcoran.
Yeah, Mr. Lake said it very well. This is overkill.
Please tell them who you are for the record.
Brian Corcoran, Diamond Homes, East Palaco. Not open yet, but will soon be. This is overkill. This is something that they're not requiring any other houses to do. So, you know, a site-built house on a concrete slab doesn't have to come up that high. Why does a manufactured home? It's punishment. This is affordable housing for the people of Putnam County, and now you're gonna make it about $10,000 more expensive, and it's just not fair. It's gonna increase the cost of the setup, the cost of the skirting, the cost of the steps. It's gonna increase everything that these people are gonna have to pay. And it's just not fair to pick on the manufactured homes versus the site-built homes.
So
You
how
can build
would-
a site-built home here, and that concrete slab doesn't have to be as high as we do.
So talk me through the different ways that you could achieve that extra 12 inches.
In a site-built home,
No, in the installation of a
we
new
would
mobile
have
home.
to double block the home. So in other
Okay.
words, we'd have to put more blocking under there, which
Right.
is more money. The anchors, the tie downs, everything would go up. The steps are gonna go from having maybe 2 or 3 steps to having 6 or 7 maybe.
And I'm not sure the cost now of raising the land, I mean, cutting and filling and bringing in additional dirt.
If you bring in, too much more, then you're gonna need retaining walls.
Yeah.
You're gonna need concrete block walls. I mean, that's not cost effective. So,
Just asking some questions. I
no
need to be
problem, no
informed.
problem. But if we have a lot that we're building a manufactured home on, and we have a lot next door to it we're building a site-built home on, we have to be a foot higher than that site-built home. Why? Doesn't make sense.
I guess we don't want houseboats? I don't know.
Well, but-
Mr. Ciafla?
Yes, Board, thank you. I would like to clear a few things up. So we're not comparing apples to apples.
Right.
It has just been mentioned, we're talking about a site-built home on a concrete foundation. We're missing one point. All the mechanical systems on a site-built home are not underneath the structure. We have a mobile home. We're not in compliance right now. The mechanical systems shall be elevated to the same elevation as the structure. We're not doing that right now. We are not in compliance. But we're not punishing anybody. This is work that we did not want to do. We were given this, either you're gonna do this and go this route, which they've given us some options. One option was not to allow mobile homes in a flood zone anyway. We weren't gonna go that route. But we can't compare a site-built home on a foundation. Now, if you build a site-built home with piers and floor joist, you're gonna do the same thing the
Right,
mobile
you are.
home's doing. So you have some options in construction. We're not in compliance right now. So in order to get in compliance with the building code, we're not punishing the mobile home, but they have chosen to put their mechanical systems underneath the finished floor elevation. That's the difference between a site-built home and a manufactured home.
Okay, so I want you or Mr. Peckham to chew on this question. Given the fact that a new manufactured home has a 12-inch I-beam before any of the structural part of the home begins, before the flooring structure is built on, is there a way that that could be considered, this 12 inches, for new manufactured housing? But for used manufacturing, reuse of manufacturing homes, requiring that there be that full 12-inch clearance? Is there a way that that compromise could happen? The three of you over there kind of,
We can't separate that fact. It's a fact of, is it a manufactured home or is it a site-built home? So the base flood elevation with the freeboard is where your site-built home is set at. All the mechanical equipment is set at that same elevation. So we're setting the mobile homes right now, but we are not taking into account for any of these mechanical systems. The unit is set up to base flood with the freeboard, but none of the ductwork is done. So we
the
really
ductwork
aren't.
goes under the freeboard?
It does.
Ew.
It does.
Not all of them. Many of the new ones, it has copper line set, just like a house. All the
Majority,
homes I'm selling,
yeah,
all the units, there's no ductwork under the house at all. There's no mechanics at all.
right.
But we still get to the fact of what makes that house not get damaged if it's lower than my home. This ductwork that you're talking about under the home now on, say, probably half of the homes, you're talking about $250, $300 worth of ductwork. This ductwork that comes out of the AC unit on a package heat pump that goes up and supplies the houses is about $250, $300. Am I right?
Okay, well, we got to have you at the microphone
Sorry.
to speak, I'm sorry. So
But-
you're
but so-
confirming what he's saying. Do this.
So that little bit of ductwork that you're talking about is very, very minimal and very easily replaced.
I agree with you. We're not here to argue the point
Sure.
of what's going to cost more, what's going to cost less, because as the building department, we are charged with enforcing protection of life, property, and safety of people.
Right.
So the cost for us, I understand you, I used to be a contractor. We can't make decisions on the building code. They pretty much give us these things to do. A lot of the things in the code book we do, I don't agree with all of them. But we've been given this parameter. So you have some options. Not place a mobile home in a flood zone, right? Meet this new standard, okay? Or build some other type of home in a flood zone. You guys have plenty of options on mobile homes, and I know it limits you to some extent, but the code says mechanical systems, and that happens to be part of the mechanical system. So I can't separate because that's only, on your account, it's only $250. I can't take that into account.
But you're going across the board on all manufactured homes. Not all manufactured homes have the mechanicals you're talking about.
Only in the flood hazard area. That's
I
what we're
understand.
addressing, yeah.
But then you said the choice is to have the customer build a different type of structure. Maybe they can't afford to build another type of structure.
Okay, let me
So-
ask a question, and you can nod your head for us if you would, Mr. Lake. Are the majority of your manufactured housing placements outside of flood zones?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What percentage of manufactured housing placements would you estimate to be in flood zones?
That's really no way of figuring that out.
It's low, maybe 5%.
So we're talking about an ordinance that would probably affect 5% of your business, but would impact insurance on everybody, new and existing.
Raising the home that foot of freeboard would not be enough room to keep flex duct out of the flood zone. What we're talking
Well,
about,
I'm just talking about the way that the state is saying we need to write our ordinance.
It's not the state.
Pardon?
It's not the state. It's
Well,
FEMA.
it's
Part of the state.
it's part of the state, it's GMA.
And it's only a suggestion, it's not a requirement.
But if we fail to follow it, we will have problems with insurance rates, and that's an issue, and in the ISO for the county.
So if it's a requirement, why is it even being brought up to
Chair-
a public hearing?
Chairperson, this is not something that we want to do. This is something we were pretty much told,
We got to do.
you're going to go this route, or you're going to be out of the program. That's
Right.
what we were told. This is not optional for us.
Right.
We have some options. One was to not allow any mobile homes in a flood hazard area. That's not a route we want to go. We don't want to see them, thrown out of the county. But we also have to protect the majority of Putnam County residents in the flood hazard. This affects nobody else outside of flood zone,
Okay?
only the flood zone areas.
This
So-
has been
so-
extremely
So why
educational.
can't it be altered? You're saying the mechanics. The only thing you mentioned mechanics was ductwork. A couple $100 worth of ductwork. The houses I'm selling don't have any ductwork under the house at all, period. So why can't you just require the homes, I'm sure all the homes can have the split units like I have in some of mine, but why do we have to go across the board on every single home? Why can't we just alter the mechanics, the ductwork or something? Because raising this house 10 feet in the air is not going to stop that ductwork from being there.
Yes, sir. We're not going across the board. We're talking about special flood hazard areas.
It's across the board on manufactured homes.
In special
In flood
floodplain
hazard
areas.
areas, and you guys both attested that, there's a very small part of your business.
But if I still have a home that doesn't have those mechanics you're talking about, I'm still going to be penalized to have to raise the house and cost $10,000 more.
I'm going to let Mr. Peckham,
So on,
he gets the fun of dealing with this every year.
Yeah.
FEMA comes in, so I'm going to let him elaborate.
so on that subject, about 0.01% of the mobile homes we see today have a line set where they don't have a package unit. We don't see a lot of mobile homes that have a split system like that. So it's a very small slice of the pie. And
But new and better things are coming, they seem to imply to me.
also, what do we do with the fact that the law is requiring it, the Florida Building Code? And our ordinance as it's written now refers you to the Florida Building Code for equipment. FEMA well, DEM has actually pointed out to us that we're not in compliance. That's why we're getting threats to shut us down as far as CRS goes. So
Because of that ductwork,
it's because of the elevation requirement.
of the
Any-
ductwork?
Anything that might be under the
Well,
the
but I mean,
unit.
the house has an air conditioning unit that's gonna be underwater too, in the same elevation. Why not?
The house has to have the air conditioner at, and also mobile homes too, also have to have the air conditioner at
Great.
1 foot above base flood elevation. So they have to have, the problem is that with a mobile home that's fed from underneath with the ductwork is under the flood if you,
But not all the homes are. All the homes I'm carrying have no ductwork under the home at all.
yeah, that's all the
That's
homes
good.
you're carrying, but it's, I'm a plans examiner here, I see about, I don't know, maybe one in less than 100.
So why can't it be altered to mention that if it doesn't have that ductwork under the home, that we don't have to raise it that high? Why can't we fall in the same category as the site-built house then?
It's not an option that they gave us, it's not an
It's-
option.
But
Because it's
it's an option
floodplain.
you should be able to go back and, you already said you looked at this ordinance and you crossed some things out, you changed some things, you went back and forth. Why can't we go back and forth and say, hey, well, if it doesn't have any flex ductwork under the home, then you don't have to raise it that high?
Well, I think, I'll let Gabriel answer that, and then we're going to move on.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think we're missing the bigger picture here. This is a requirement that we've been given by the state. In order for active participation in the NFIP program, which is the National Flood Insurance Program, we have to meet these minimum standards in our ordinance. If we do not, that entails loss of FEMA flood assistance in the event of a 100-year storm, and many other repercussions. So we're not really trying to debate the language here, we're just trying to
We're getting
meet
educated.
the intent. Yes, ma'am.
So that can't be, that's not the determination of a homeowner as to whether or not they want to have the flood insurance.
Well,
Or meet the
it
FEMA
is a
standard.
most mortgages will require flood insurance, so
This is exactly where it should be as far as I'm concerned, not with a governmental agency, with the insurance industry. I've got
They
one other-
drive that.
Yeah, I've got one other question. You mentioned a minute ago that a standard home on pillars has the same requirements as a mobile home?
If you were to build a site-built home on piers with joist, floor joist, with space underneath, you would have to elevate that mechanical systems would also need that 1 foot. So we're not penalizing just manufactured homes. All the homes need to meet the building code. So if you were to build that type of structure, slab on grade does not meet that intent, right? All your systems are above grade. So we're talking about systems, mechanical systems that are below the base flood elevation. or
Understood,
design
but if I
flood.
built a home, my home right now is on pillars. I don't have any of that underneath my home.
Right, you do not, but if you chose to go that route, you would have to also come in
Well,
compliance.
that's different. Okay, if you
Yeah.
choose to do it.
Correct.
I understand
Correct.
that. Okay.
Right, we're not mandating that you do that. If you
Okay.
choose to build it that way, you have to come in compliance.
Okay.
But it would not affect a person who's already built. You guys are,
Well, no, I'm talking about if I wanted to build a new one, I'd build it exactly the way I did now.
right, I don't believe that you would choose to put your mechanical systems underneath the floor either, right?
Absolutely not.
There you go.
Well, let me
Put
ask
your
a
water lines in
question.
the ceiling.
Is if you have mobile homes that don't have the mechanical or underneath the house, I kind of see their point, and I understand this is a state issue, but if you don't get any pushback to the state or either question to the state's going to keep pushing stuff down our throat all the time that is just really unreasonable. And I feel like it's unreasonable if you've got a mobile home, doesn't have air conditioning ducts underneath the house, that should be treated the same as a stick-built house. But a stick-built house probably has to have floodgates underneath, it would be my guess. If you had a perimeter foundation, you would probably have to have floodgates underneath it.
That's correct.
And mobile homes don't have floodgates, maybe because of the skirting, is that?
That is correct. There's an exception in the TB1, which is the FEMA document that covers flood venting. They allow for flexible skirting to be installed without flood vents because it's flexible, and
Okay.
if you do get a flood and you get some water pressure, it's usually gone at that moment. It doesn't affect the foundation.
Yeah.
So you're also saying that this is to stay in ordinance with the state to receive FEMA money for 100-year flood if somebody's home obviously gets flooded and doesn't have flood insurance of their own. Is that exactly, I mean,
Say that
what,
one more time for me, sir.
I mean, if somebody has flood insurance with their insurance policy, then why, I mean, not complying with this ordinance, it wouldn't affect anything, right?
It's going to affect their rate.
It would affect your ability to get flood insurance in Putnam County.
So all insurance policies would be changed.
So the NFIP policies, the flood insurance policies, are written by the National Flood Insurance Program. In order to have that insurance available to a county, they have to participate with the NFIP.
I got you.
We're also a CRS community.
I've never gotten flood insurance,
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking all these questions.
One other thing is if you go to the townships, if you will, that have their own little building department, they don't follow the same rules as the Putnam County. So how does that affect flood insurance for the,
Which municipalities within the county of Putnam are you representing?
I would rather not say because I don't want to get them in trouble, but I've done some.
Yeah, for a reason. So we have taken over the city of Palaca, Pomona
Okay,
Park,
it's not in
Crescent
neither
City.
one of those.
Crescent, there's one town within this
Yes,
Putnam
sir.
County, Willaca, that does not fall under our umbrella.
Okay.
Every other municipality in Putnam falls under our umbrella.
It's the one that you didn't mention.
So all of them interlocking, we take care of everybody excluding Willaca.
Yeah.
So, just like the ISO, Palaca had a not as good as a rating as Putnam County. Now they're under our umbrella. They enjoy our new rating of a 3. They were a
So-
5.
So the Willaca residents do not enjoy that 10%.
I don't know what their rating is. I don't believe they're a member of the NFIP.
Okay.
I can't speak to Willaca. We don't cover them. I don't believe it's been years since we've covered them, so I can't speak. Just like I can't speak to the hurricane data. I don't know if we've had a direct hit in 20
Yes, sir.
years. I don't know. I don't have all that data here, so.
It also seems to me is that if you're in a flood zone or a flood area, your wind exposure would probably be greater. And by raising your elevation up, it seems like that would be more vulnerable from a wind load situation on a mobile home too, to
Yeah, so I don't
that
think your
situation.
exposure category automatically changes with the flood zone you're in. It's gonna depend on what's around your structure, right? So if you're right on the river, you might be exposure D. You got a wide open river right
Yes, sir.
there. You're gonna get the nor'easter, right? So doesn't need a hurricane to give you a flood problem. We've seen Michael and Irma, where prior to the hurricanes, we already had an abundant amount of water in Putnam County. Look at all our lakes, they filled right up. So it doesn't take the hurricane to give us a flood event.
Could
So,
we,
and I want to just say one more time, the small percentage of people this is going to affect, if we don't do the ordinance, will affect the majority.
well, you
And that's what I was
keep
trying to
saying
figure
that,
out,
but when
how
you
what's the-
start talking about auxiliary structures, then that percentage of people goes way up from what?
Well, you
That-
could
that-
still
that-
you could still build the structure, 600 feet, nothing changes. Anything above that, you're just going to have to elevate it to the base flood elevation, design flood. correct?
That's going to affect a lot more people
Right.
than the little 5% or whatever they're talking about in the mobile homes. That's more my concern than, I mean, not that I don't have any concern of your mobile home issue, but that would be my concern.
But we're not doing this as a
Can we-
punishment.
I know you're not pushing it, and I understand where you're from, but could we go back to them and say, look, if a mobile home doesn't have if they have a standard air conditioning system like a stick-built house,
So
could that be something that you could question the FEMA about and say, can we do that? I mean, is that an option?
that would be an awesome idea, but in the options they've given us, they don't have language to that effect. And this is gonna, our grading system's coming up. They don't want to hear anything else. We went back and forth. We fought with them. Like I said, they didn't even want us to have mobile homes in the flood hazard. We fought back on that.
So
They
they're
gave
not
us
going to
other options.
negotiate?
We negotiated, I think this started in November. This started in November, and we're just bringing it to you today. So
So this is the best result of months' worth of work.
that's
where we're at.
John, the handout that you passed out, as I tried to ask you earlier,
Yes, sir.
the FDEM,
Florida Department of Emergency Management.
are those sort of the big cheeses or what?
That's
They're
the
the-
Florida Department of
They're
Emergency.
the gatekeeper of the NFIP, I believe, with,
For this,
Yeah.
for this whole thing?
They're the ones who manage emergency management in Florida, so they would be the state comparable to FEMA.
Okay.
So
The letter that,
the State Floodplain Management, DEM, is the main organization. Floodplain Management Office is part of that organization. They report to the FEMA region, so it
so
goes us.
the individual we were talking about this morning is who sent this reply back to you at my request.
Yes, yes.
And it says, they, the FDEM, still strongly encourages communities to require the elevation of manufactured homes to be regulated to the bottom of the frame, which is what we currently do, correct?
No.
No.
No, we don't do that?
We do the base flood elevation to the bottom of the frame, which is 1 foot less than that. So
Yep, this is 1 foot
That's-
above.
Still encourages communities to require the elevation of the manufactured homes to be regulated to the bottom of the frame.
Right. Regulated means where they start measuring the foot.
I don't believe that's what it says. I'm
So-
sorry.
So, just to clarify, our ordinance right now says that we have to have the BFE, the bottom of the frame at BFE, base flood elevation. What they're requiring is that we have the bottom of the frame at design flood elevation, which is 1 foot above. That's what the Florida Building Code requires.
Okay. Mr. Lake, I'm going to give you just 30 seconds, so come on up here. I'll give you just a minute.
Don, if I may, and John, am I wrong? Is the demand or the requirement from the state for 1 foot of freeboard to the bottom of the frame, or is that just a recommendation for insurance purposes? Is it exactly what they are requiring?
Yes, that's what they're requiring. They give you 3 options, one of which doesn't really pertain to us.
They are requiring 1 foot of freeboard to the bottom of the frame.
Yes.
I'd sure like to see that language.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are we ready to bring this back to the board for a motion and a recommendation?
Yes,
Mr. DeSantis, I'll entertain your motion.
I move that we approve the ordinance as it was presented,
Okay?
the amendment to the ordinance.
Okay, do I have a second to that? I'll second it. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. DeSantis made the motion, and, good grief. Ms. Fortner just made the second. This has been a very good discussion, and I thank our gentleman in the audience for your briefing with us. I thank staff for your excellent presentation and answering our questions. I think you have enlightened us much more than we ever were. And I would remind the commission that we have the Land Development Code coming up, and this will be one of the things that will be integral in the Land Development Code. And every bit of knowledge we can soak up that will help us with that is going to make that job a lot easier. And your civic duty today, we very much appreciate. Regardless of how we ultimately vote on this, please know that you have been appreciated being here today and sharing what you have with us. Are you ready to vote, or is there any more discussion we'd like to have on this?
The only discussion that I would like to say is I'm under protest here because I feel like and it's not you guys, so please don't take it that way. I feel like the state is coming in and just.
Strong-arming?
It's strong-arming. That is I think it's unfair that they're strong-arming like they are. But that's all I have to say.
I'm
We
going
tend
to
to
add an
agree with you,
amen
sir.
to that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. Having been a state employee both in another state and in this state, I certainly understand what you're saying. Sometimes bureaucracy is not a lot of fun. I'll leave it at that. Let's vote on this. Any other discussion before we call for the vote? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. I'm going to call the roll. Tom?
Aye.
Ken?
No.
Joe? Jerry? I can't get names right today. Jerry?
No.
Aaron?
Aye.
Joey?
Aye.
Joel?
No.
Joe?
No.
Chair votes aye. How'd that come out?
4-4.
All right, we have a tie vote. We can, if we send a tie vote to the commission, that is considered a not recommend, a no vote, to not recommend. I will ask one time, and then we'll move on and take it as it is. Is there anyone who voted against this willing to change their votes to vote to move it on to the commission as a positive response? I don't mind moving it on as a tied vote, but just want to give you a chance to make that decision. I'm going to give you 10 seconds, maybe 5 seconds. Hearing none, we will move this on to the county commission as a tie vote, and they will have the same pleasure that we've had today, and I certainly hope that they have the same quality of input from staff and the same quality of input from the public. And I encourage you all to be there and to share your opinions, and let's move this forward and do what we can. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for your help.
And please don't take this, anything against you guys.
No,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
it is a process, and, okay, you can leave now, Jerry. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Young man.
Behave yourself. Okay. At this point, we'll move into zoning case number R21013. Mr. Schwing is recusing himself from this case, so if you would, go ahead and take a seat out in the audience. And, yes, Jerry is leaving, but we still have a quorum. Mr. Hafner has exited the meeting. He has another engagement he has to be at. So, Wendy, it's yours. Please talk into the microphone so they can hear you.
Okay. Wendy Hickey, Planning and Development Services. This is case R21-013. It is for Dominic and Angela Bonecutter. It's a zoning map amendment for a single parcel, .08 acres. from
Okay, we can hear you guys back there, Mr. Schwing. Please take a seat. Thank you. I'm sorry, Wendy.
Okay. Zoning map amendment for a single parcel, 0.80 acres, from residential 2 to commercial general 3. The property is located at 571 South US 17, San Mateo. The parcel is designated commercial on the future land use map. As I said, it's .08 acres. It contains 202 feet of frontage on South US 17, and the property is vacant. This is a map of the location. The future land use, as you can see, it's commercial, and the current zoning as R2. It is within the urban service area category of the future land use map. It allows, that is in anticipation of utilities within the next 10 years. The uses associated with the C3 zoning district are allowed within the urban service area. And the subject parcel, of course, has Highway US 17 access, so that's also a positive point. The existing zoning, the purpose of the R2 is a residential zoning district that also allows for mobile homes. The C3 is a general commercial district that allows for not quite intense, but slightly intense, a little bit more meaty commercial type businesses within it. The urban service area allows for the commercial C3. The parcel has, of course, as I stated, US 17 access, and the surrounding land uses are kind of a mixed bag. We have a C4 that is right adjacent to it on 17, which is hot, very intense. Then we have a mobile home to the west for R2. To the south, we have an FDOT R2 zone parcel. That's more like probably almost like a drainage area that they've obtained. And on the west is R2. So I think I've already said that, sorry. So the findings are, it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It is consistent for those locational requirements. It's compatible with that zoning that's out there currently. And of course, we recommend approval to amend the zoning map from R2 to Commercial General 3.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff?
The applicant is here if you have any questions.
Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward and speak? Please come forward and state your name and address and tell us about your project.
All right, my name is Dominic Bonecutter. I'm at 126 Smith Lane in Satsuma. My project with this property and getting it turned into commercial is looking to put 2 to 3 small businesses, 500 square feet or less for rent, and then one larger area, probably about 1,500 square foot, and in hopes of drawing in new people to small businesses. Maybe somebody wants to put a jewelry store in, or a small office, or just to try to improve the rental in that location towards the south.
So you're planning to build some speculative commercial space?
Right, correct. Much better said, yes.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Bonecutter? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition to it? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board for conversation. Any discussion on this particular zoning application?
No, I think it's great that he wants to do something.
Mhm.
We
We need to go forward while everybody's spending money.
We applaud you for it. Yes. Anything else? All right. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for approval or denial of this.
So move, we approve application R21-13.
Okay, we have a motion from Tom DeSantis.
I'll second it.
I have a second from Joey Froelich. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. This will move to the County Commission on July 27th for a similar hearing, and they have the final say-so. We just make the recommendation. Okay? This time we'll call PUD 21-006. Again, Wendy, I believe this is yours.
This application is for North Flow Properties LLC. The applicant is Ronald and Dawn Delisle. It is a rezoning of 5 acres from residential mobile home to planned unit development. The location is 102 Elsie Drive, East Palatka. The purpose is for an overnight RV campground. The future land use is urban service. The zoning currently, as I had stated, is residential mobile home. This is an aerial of the property. We most recently had some things going on that are happening around that general area, boat storage and other items that are changing the neighborhood per se. The project information, it's one parcel totaling 5 acres. It allows for 40 RV park model cabin sites. It's 40 sites flat. The associated uses and structures are an office, of course, restroom and bathroom, laundry, pool, playground, dog park, utility storage buildings. The future land use map and the existing zoning. As you can see, you have a C4 that is directly across the street, and then you have C2. You have a lot of commercial. This is the concept plan. The comp plan consistency. The urban service land use classification, as we talked about previously, is that infrastructure will be available within the next 10 years. In this case, the utilities are available now through Putnam County Water Sewer is now available. So uses in this district are residential, commercial uses, activity and resource-based recreation activities, and industrial uses. The comp plan consistency allows PUD zoning in any future land use designation if the PUD is consistent with the goals and objectives, the criteria of the land development code is met, and the PUD does not increase the intensity or density of the uses for the underlying land use category. So the analysis, the parcel is 5 acres. It's designated urban service. The urban service land use allows the activity-based use. The proposed PUD development would allow the RV camping, and the use proposed by the PUD is consistent with the urban service area. In addition, all all RV parks must be rezoned to PUD. So that is something in the code that it's going to happen no matter what. Section 45-222A of the LDC requires the application for rezoning present evidence that it's justified in one or more of the following. It's unique, is the proposed development in such size, scale that it's compatible, and its complexity is unique in design, or is the nature of the proposed use at a specific site requires specialized design characteristic to preserve, protect neighborhood character. Now, the proposed project is an overnight campground that is planned to work in conjunction with the neighboring marina and restaurant, which is under ownership with the Delisles. So it's actually in conjunction with the other. It's not just an RV park. The PUD is consistent with and compatible with the adjacent waterfront community, and the PUD is justified per criteria 3. The rezoning must meet the following: the density or intensity, the character. The uses proposed for the North Flow RV Resort fall primarily within the definition of recreational uses found in the comprehensive plan. The density and intensity of the development authorized in the development agreement for the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The uses proposed within the PUD are compatible. The uses surrounding the project are primarily commercial and residential. There are residential uses to the west across Elsie Drive. The primary purpose of the project is to provide opportunities for recreational activities, making utilization access to the marina and the St. Johns River. Required setbacks and specific Group 3 buffering, along with restrictions on nuisances, including noise to adjacent property owners, traffic generated from this project, will be less than the previous mobile home park that was on this site. The residential density of the PUD must comply with the density. Overnight recreational parks are deemed non-residential where density is concerned. There's no residential units proposed within this development. Usable open space plazas, recreational areas provided within the PUD must be consistent with the policies of the comp plan. Adequate open space and recreational uses are provided in the site plan to meet the demand generated by the proposed project. The majority of the site will be left as open space to support the recreational activities of the project. So as you see on that plan, it looks like there's just the pads. There's not much else density-wise going on. The site of the PUD must be suitable for the manner proposed without hazards to persons either off or on site. The county requirements for stormwater management set forth in the adopted comprehensive plan will limit any hazards from flooding, erosion, or other dangers. Stormwater facility construction will be reviewed at site development submittal. All uses permitted within the PUD have access to public street, either direct or by private road. The proposed development proposes a 20 to 30 foot paved one-way vehicular circulation roadway. This internal roadway shall be required to comply with Article 7 of the LDC. And it actually fronts onto Elsie Drive, which is just off of US 17. Sufficient off-street parking and on-street parking for bicycles, automobiles, and other vehicles must be provided. All parking will be internal to the project. There will be adequate space within the PUD for all required parking. In addition, all parking will be set back a minimum of 30 feet from any property line. Utilities and essential public services, including but not limited to sanitary sewer, potable water, fire abatement services, and apparatuses, solid waste, and other services must be available. The project will be required to connect to water and wastewater service from Putnam County Utilities. The connection will be at the owner's developer's expense. There is adequate capacity and other service capacity to meet the demands generated by this proposed project. The limits of the development, the 40 spaces as we talked about in the beginning, the office, the restroom, the laundry, the pool, playground, dog park, utility storage buildings. And then there will be a 35-foot buffer between the PUD boundaries and RV sites between RV sites, on-site parking, and storage equipment. So there will be a buffer for the neighbors outside of, and water and sanitary sewer will be provided by Putnam County Utilities. Staff finds that the applicant has presented evidence that rezoning to PUD is justified. The proposed PUD development is consistent with the future land use designation. The proposed project is compatible with the existing uses in the area. The development is consistent with the requirements for the PUD zoning and consistent with other comprehensive plan goals, objectives, and policies. Staff recommends approval with the request to rezone one 5-acre parcel from residential mobile home to plan unit development, subject to the inclusion of the North Flow RV Resort PUD development agreement.
Thank you, Wendy. Are there questions of staff? Are the owners here, Mr. and Mrs. Delisle? Would you like to come forth and talk? Tell us who you are, where you live, and tell us about your project.
My name is Ron Delisle, and we live at 102 Elsie Drive, the subject property right now. We bought it back in 2017, and we had planned to always build a campground there, and they just last year finished the sewer system through Elsie Drive. So that's what kicked off the development, and here we are.
Okay, so you're going to avail yourself of the Putnam County water and sewer system, which is a great thing to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Delisle? I know several of our board members have spoken with you at one time or another. We thank you for your project that you're bringing forward, and if there are no questions, we'll just hold you in abeyance. If we have any later, we'll ask you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Any discussion among board members? Anyone else wishing to speak either for or against this project, by the way? Okay. Bring it back to the board for discussion.
I think it's a great improvement on the property, and it's going to be an asset, bringing people into our county. That, you know, the RV thing is a big thing right now, so.
Yes, it is, it is.
Yeah, I'm glad to see it too.
I think it's a great idea, great concept.
It's a beautiful
idea.
place. It's a beautiful lot.
It really is.
It's a
And,
good area.
They've done a
Yeah.
nice job
The
on
river and
cleaning it up.
everything. It's
Makes
nice.
you want to go buy a RV and go up and stay with you sometime. But no, we think that's great. Are we ready to vote on this particular proposal?
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion?
I move we recommend to approve PUD 21006 as is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. I saw Joel say second, and I heard Joey say second. So pick one of my J-boys down there and use him as the second.
It don't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Let Joel.
We'll let Joel, since you did the last one, okay?
Yeah.
All
Give him
right.
a turn.
We have a motion on the floor, and is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All opposed, like sign. Mr. and Mrs. Delisle, thank you very much for bringing this forward to us. This will go forth before the Board of County Commissioners on July 27th for a similar hearing and presentation. And we look forward to your being a part of this community, just like we look forward to having Mr. Bonecutter as part of this community and doing great things in that area. So we appreciate you very much. Thank you very much for what you're doing. Before we go into new business, let me just give you an update. The comprehensive plan has been transmitted to Tallahassee with the approved data and analysis.
Yes, ma'am.
The Board of Commissioners was very happy with the changes that were made to the data and analysis section, and they asked me to convey their pleasure and their appreciation to each of you for the work you put in on that project. Two things I will share with you. Yesterday, the Board of Commissioners heard a case that had gone on to them as a recommendation for denial from us for the safe pet shelter that's down on Moody Road. They unanimously approved that. So just because we turn something down or send a negative vote to them doesn't mean they're going to accept it. They're going to do what they want to do. Also yesterday, there was a long public hearing on the application of biosolids. There is a request in right now for a supplemental use permit on property down in the Lake Como area. And there is quite a contingent of folks from Lake Como who are opposed to this. The commission, Gabriel, help me with this if I get it wrong, voted to ask staff to draw up an ordinance that would require that any special use permit issued on biosolids could come back to the Board of County Commissioners for an appeal prior to going to the judiciary.
Yes, ma'am,
that
that's
correct?
correct. Yes, ma'am.
I have a feeling we'll see that ordinance before too long. So that's just for the application of biosolids.
Yes, ma'am.
So there were two speakers who came from the scientific standpoint, and the rest of the speakers that took up nearly 3 hours were all opposed to this for various reasons, ranging from, I'm not going to go there, but you can watch it on YouTube. It got a little histrionic at times, let's just put it that way. So I have a feeling we're going to see that. That would come back to us, wouldn't it, Gabriel? An ordinance like that would come back to us because it would be an amendment to the comp plan, would it not?
Yes, Madam Chairman. No, not an amendment to the comp plan. It
Oh,
would be,
it's Land Development Code.
yes. Yes, ma'am.
It would be an amendment to the LDC, so it would come to us.
Yes, ma'am. So either one would come to you, but it would not be an amendment to the comp plan.
It would be an amendment to the LDC.
Yes, ma'am.
So that will come to us before it goes back to the Board of Commissioners.
Yes, ma'am. And it will probably take a number of months to get here.
Okay.
But
Because I know Mr. Commando is going to be working on that with you, and
yes,
it's
ma'am.
going to be a bit of a job. And then we will have a hearing on it that will be a public hearing before us. And I have a feeling we'll have some of the same conversations brought before us for that. So just don't skip out on that meeting. I need you all here. What do we have coming up for June?
We're in June.
July.
For July, we don't have any complete applications right now. We may have a rezone coming in, but it's very preliminary right now, and the request may not even need the rezone. So, Wendy, if I'm not mistaken, we don't have any items currently scheduled. Okay.
We're not going to argue about that, and if you gave us a month off, we might think we earned it with all the extra meetings we've had over the past year. Because last July, we met 3 times, I believe. So, all right, any new business that needs to come before the board before we go to the approval of minutes? Any old business? I think I've just gone through the old business. Okay, the minutes of the May 12th meeting were in your packet. Do we have any additions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes? Or do we have a motion to approve the minutes as they were presented?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Dantzler has moved that we approve the minutes. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's the Joey.
The J and J.
The J and J. Okay, any other discussion on the minutes? I hear none. I will ask for all approval. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? We've approved the minutes for May 12th. Do I hear any objections that we adjourn the meeting at 5:25 p.m.?
Madam Chairwoman, I'm sorry, if I may.
Of course you may, Gabriel.
Sorry to interrupt. Just another note on the transmittal of the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
So our transmittal was accepted by the state for review. They have 30 days from the date of receipt, which was yesterday morning. We attempted to do it on the day before, but their portal wasn't working, so they accepted it the day after. So they have sent us a letter stating that everything was in compliance with their submission guidelines, and it is likely, with such a large change to our comprehensive plan, that we will receive comments back from the state.
I'd be surprised if we don't.
Right, and potential objections too, so.
I'd be surprised if we don't.
And that would be a case in which staff would have to work on those, because our contract is now ended with Kimley Horn, so staff would have to incorporate any changes at that point.
Right, and you would bring those before us?
Yes, ma'am,
They would have to go before us and then go before the county commission.
that's right.
I think we can handle that, as long as it's not a complete rewrite.
I would hope not.
It is.
That was all for my comments, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And is the comprehensive plans also been sent to the surrounding counties and the municipalities within the county?
All of the municipalities within Putnam County and Flagler, Volusia, Alachua, Clay,
St. John's.
St. John's, and Bradford.
Okay, that's right, we do touch them.
Yes.
I've got to go. I've got a meeting at 5:30.
Well, you better hurry, Joe. Thank you very much. Just let the record show that Joe Roberts has left the meeting at 5:27.
And a number of other reviewing agencies as well.
Right,
Within the state.
and they have a 30-day period?
Yes, ma'am, to comment on that. And they can pose objections or comments as well.
To the state site?
To the, well, they would pose them directly to us, and then we would have to settle those comments. We don't have to settle all comments, but if it's an objection and it's a valid objection, then we would have to remediate that somehow.
And we have 30 days.
Yes, ma'am. Well, no.
They have 30 days.
They have 30 days, and then we have a time frame that escapes me after that.
Let's say 80 days, but
I can't remember right now what that time frame is, but we have a decent amount of time to fix it.
okay. And we either can accept their recommendations, or for surrounding areas and counties and cities, we can look at them and we don't have to accept them. We can,
If it's just a comment, if they pose a valid objection, then we would have to review it and see how we can
Right.
remediate that
Right.
objection.
But the state might have the same valid objection.
state might have the same valid objection.
Objection.
And we don't necessarily have to make a change. We just have to respond to it with our review process and what we have recommended to them, right?
Right, and it may be a request for more information as well.
Sure.
So.
Okay. All right. We will stay tuned. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And will you keep us notified of any issues that come up?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Okay. All right. At this point, do I hear any objections that we adjourn this meeting at 5:28 p.m.? Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much.